My grandson whispered, "Grandma, they're planning something bad for tonight." I quickly packed my bags and left through the back door. The next morning, my son called, panicking, "Mom, where are you? We need to talk." I said calmly, "I know what you tried to do. Now let me tell you what I did while you were sleeping." Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching, get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. I was measuring flour for Jamal's oatmeal raisin cookies when he whispered it. My hands, dusted white, stilled above the ceramic bowl. The evening light through the kitchen window was soft, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. It was a Tuesday. "Grandma," he said, his voice a thin, urgent thread. He had come in from the backyard, his small frame blocking the screen door. His eyes were too wide. He stepped closer, the linoleum creaking under his sneakers. He smelled of grass and boy sweat. He put his hand on my arm, his fingers sticky. "You have to listen. Dad was on the phone in the garage. He was talking to Aunt Lisa. He said they're planning something bad for tonight." I did not move. I looked at his face, at the genuine fear pulling his features tight. Jamal was 10. He was not a dramatic child. He was observant and quiet like his grandfather. I placed the measuring cup on the counter. "Planning what, baby?" He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "About you. He said it was time. He said they had to move you, to a home. He said the doctor would agree you can't live alone anymore. He said it would be easier while you were confused." Jamal's words came in a rushed, horrified spill. "He said they'd come after dinner, with papers." The warmth left the kitchen. The golden light from the window turned cold and flat. The familiar contours of my home, the chipped yellow tile by the sink, the photograph of Robert and me on the refrigerator, the old oak table sharpened into edges. They were discussing me as a problem. My son, my only living child. He used the word confused. I felt a hollow open in my chest, a silent, airless space. "I'm not confused," I said, and my voice was my own, steady and low. "I know," Jamal whispered, his eyes filling. "That's why it's bad." I nodded. I turned and slowly washed my hands in the sink, watching the flour swirl down the drain. The methodical motion helped. The betrayal was a physical weight, but beneath it, a colder mechanism engaged. This was not a surprise. It was the crystallization of a suspicion I had carried for months, a dull ache I had dismissed as a mother's paranoia. I had heard the tension in Marcus's voice when he asked, again, about the deed. I had seen his wife, Cynthia, appraising the living room furniture with a calculating eye just last week. I had chosen to see stress, not avarice. I was wrong. Robert's voice from years ago was clear in my memory. "Have a plan, Ellie, even if you never use it, especially then." He said it when we finally paid off the mortgage. He was a practical man. I dried my hands on the checkered towel. "Thank you for telling me," I said to Jamal. I bent to his level, taking his shoulders in my hands. "You did the right thing. This is not your burden. Do you understand? This is between adults." "What are you going to do?" he asked, a tear tracing a path through the dust on his cheek. "I am going to finish these cookies for you to take home," I said. "And then I am going to visit my friend Beverly for a few days." "But Dad's coming tonight." "I know," I stood up. The hollow feeling was gone, replaced by a focused clarity. "Go watch television in the den. Act normal. Do not say a word to your father. This is our secret." He hesitated, then nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. He shuffled out of the kitchen. I heard the soft click of the den door. I resumed making the cookies. My movements were efficient, automatic. Scoop, level, pour, mix. The rhythm was calming. While the first batch baked, filling the house with the scent of cinnamon and brown sugar, I walked to my bedroom. I did not go to my closet for clothes. I went to the back of the walk-in, to a panel in the wall Robert had built for insulation. My fingers found the seam. The panel came away with a soft pull. Inside was a small space, just large enough for a fireproof lockbox and a single, sturdy leather bag. I carried the bag to the bed. It was not heavy. Inside were the documents I had gathered and updated every year on Robert's birthday. The original deed to the house, the title to my car, my passport, my birth certificate and social security card, the marriage license, the life insurance policy, and the most important one, the the last will and testament of Alina Jenkins, notarized 3 years prior, naming Jamal as the primary beneficiary of a trust, with Beverly as the executor. There was no power of attorney document for Marcus. I had revoked that quietly through my lawyer, Ms. Green, after he made a comment about reverse mortgages 5 years ago. I told him I had lost the paper. He had been annoyed but did not press. Beneath the documents was a stack of $100 bills, 5,000 in total, and a separate prepaid cellular phone still in its packaging. I placed my everyday wallet, keys, and my personal cell phone into the bag. I would leave my regular phone here. I took only the essentials from my dresser, 3 changes of simple clothing, my medication, a photograph of Robert and a younger Jamal. I did not look at the jewelry box on the vanity. Those were sentimental, not strategic. I zipped the bag closed. I returned the panel to its place. The room looked undisturbed. The timer dinged in the kitchen. I went back, used the mittens to take out the cookies, and placed them on the wire rack to cool. I packed a dozen into a plastic container for Jamal. The rest I left on the counter. I looked at the clock. Marcus and Cynthia would be here in 2 hours under the guise of a friendly dinner visit. They would bring a casserole. Cynthia would compliment the house. Marcus would ask, with false concern, if I'd been feeling dizzy again. I went to the small desk in the living room. I took a single sheet of my stationery, the one with the faint floral border. I wrote with my good pen, in my clear, looping cursive. Marcus asterisk. Gone to protect what's mine. Don't look for me. Mom. I did not sign it with love. I placed the note squarely in the center of the kitchen table, where the light from the overhead fixture would hit it directly. I put on my coat. I retrieved my bag from the bedroom. I walked back through the kitchen, the scent of cookies now sickly sweet to me. I paused at the den door, opening it slightly. Jamal was curled on the sofa, watching a cartoon, but he wasn't laughing. He looked over. I gave him a small, firm nod. He gave one back. I went out the back door, through the screened porch and into the fading twilight. My car was in the detached garage. I opened the trunk, set the bag inside, and closed it softly. I got into the driver's seat. I connected the prepaid phone to the car charger. I started the engine. The sound was loud in the quiet garage. I backed out slowly, not turning on my headlights until I was on the street. I did not look back at the house. I drove toward the older part of town, where the streetlights were fewer and the trees were thicker. I drove toward Beverly's bed and breakfast. I knew she would be there. She was always there on Tuesdays, doing the books. The house, with its warm windows and its memories, receded in my rearview mirror. The hollow feeling was gone completely now. In its place was a cold, clear purpose. The planning was over. The action had begun. The drive to Beverly's took 18 minutes. I knew the route without thought. The streets were quiet, the houses glowing with the blue light of televisions. I did not speed. I obeyed every stop sign. Visibility was key now. Anonymity was my shield. The prepaid phone lay silent on the passenger seat. Beverly's bed and breakfast, the Rosewood, was a large Victorian house at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was painted a deep sage green with cream trim. A single porch light was on, a warm yellow beacon against the deepening blue of the evening. I pulled into the gravel driveway beside the house, away from the street, and turned off the engine. The silence that followed was immediate and complete. I sat for a moment, listening to the tick of the cooling engine. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady. I picked up the new phone and the leather bag, got out, and closed the car door with a soft click. I walked around to the back porch, where the kitchen entrance was. The screen door was unlatched. I could see Beverly inside at the large oak table, her reading glasses perched on her nose, surrounded by ledgers and invoices. A single lamp cast a pool of light around her. I tapped on the door frame. She looked up, squinting, then her eyes widened. She took off her glasses. "Ellie Jenkins," she said, her voice low, "you only use my back door when something's wrong." She stood up, her chair scraping against the tile floor. She came to the door and pushed it open. "Get in here." I stepped into the warmth of the kitchen. It smelled of lemon cleaner and the lingering scent of that evening's roast chicken. The familiarity was a physical relief. a slight loosening of the tension in my shoulders. Beverly looked me over, from my coat to the bag in my hand. "You're traveling light, and you left your car phone in the car, I see." She nodded at the prepaid device in my other hand. "Marcus knows my number," I said. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. She had never approved of Marcus's wife, Cynthia, and she had made her distrust of his recent financial anxiety clear over our weekly tea. What did he do? He and Cynthia planned to have me declared unfit. A doctor's evaluation. They intended to move me to a facility tonight. Jamal overheard them. Beverly sucked in a sharp breath through her teeth. "That boy," she muttered, though the affection was clear. "And you walked out." I left a note. What did it say? "Gone to protect what's mine. Don't look for me." A slow smile spread across Beverly's face. It was not a kind smile. It was a smile of grim approval. "Well, he'll be looking, but he won't know where to start. You'll stay in the garden room. No one's booked it for the week." She took my bag from me. "Come on, you can help me finish these books. You always were better with numbers." I followed her through the kitchen and up the back staircase. The garden room was at the rear of the house, overlooking her small, manicured backyard. It was simple, a queen-sized bed, a writing desk, a comfortable armchair. The walls were a soft cream. It was clean and quiet, a safe harbor. "Thank you, Beverly," I said as she set my bag on the luggage rack. "Don't thank me yet," she said, turning. "This is the easy part. The next part is the law, and the part after that is the heart. Both are messy." She studied me. "You have your papers." "I have everything." "Good, I'll make tea. You get settled." She left, closing the door softly behind her. I methodically unpacked the few items I had brought. I placed the stack of documents on the desk. I hung my clothes in the empty closet. I put my toiletries in the adjoining bathroom. The routine was calming. I placed the photograph of Robert and Jamal on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed. The quiet of the room was different from the quiet of my house. Here, the silence was neutral. In my home, in the hour I had been gone, that silence would have been shattered. As if on cue, the prepaid phone on the desk buzzed, a harsh, unfamiliar sound. A text message from a number I did not recognize. It was from Jamal using his mother's old tablet, I presumed. The message was brief. "They are here. Dad read note. He looks sick." I did not reply. I powered the phone off. Jamal knew the rule, one-way communication only for his safety. Downstairs, Beverly had prepared 2 cups of chamomile tea. We sat at her kitchen table, the ledgers pushed aside. "He'll call the police," she stated. "I expect he will," I said. "A missing elderly mother, signs of abrupt departure. He will present it as a crisis, a proof of my confusion." "And what will you do?" "In the morning, I will visit Ms. Green. She will inform the police, if they contact her, that I am of sound mind, under no duress, and that any report of my disappearance is fraudulent. She will mention the revoked power of attorney." Beverly nodded slowly, sipping her tea. "He doesn't know you did that, does he?" "He thinks the document is merely lost. He never verified." We sat in silence for a while. I pictured it as clearly as if I were watching from a corner of my own kitchen. Marcus and Cynthia arriving, the casserole dish in hand. Jamal silent, holding his container of cookies. The initial confusion at the empty, brightly lit rooms. The call of Mom, growing more frantic. The discovery of the note on the table. Marcus picking up the single sheet of paper, his eyes scanning the 2 lines. I imagined his face. First, bewilderment, then a dawning cold comprehension. She knows, the humiliation of it that his mother had outmaneuvered him. The fear of what else she knew, what else she had done. Cynthia's voice, sharp with panic. "What does that mean? Where would she go? What is she protecting?" Jamal, watching it all, saying nothing. The performance they had planned, the concerned son, the supportive daughter-in-law, the gentle suggestion of a checkup, would be impossible now. The stage was empty. The audience had left. And they were standing there, exposed, holding a script that was now worthless. "He will be angry," Beverly said. "Then he will be scared." Yes, I agreed. Anger would come first at being thwarted. Then fear of the financial and legal consequences. fear of the social consequences once word got out, and beneath it all, perhaps, a shame so deep he would not be able to face it. Not yet. "Do you want to break him?" Beverly asked, her gaze direct. I considered the question. I looked into my tea at the pale yellow liquid. "No," I said finally. "I want him to see himself, clearly, and then I want him to have a choice, a real one." Beverly reached across the table and patted my hand. "That's harder than breaking someone." "I know." We finished our tea. I helped her put the ledgers away. The house settled into its nighttime rhythms. From my room, I could see the moon rising over the backyard. I did not feel like a fugitive. I felt like a general who had retreated to a secured position to review her maps. The first move had been mine. The next move was his. I was prepared for all his likely responses. I turned on the prepaid phone once more. There were 3 more texts from Jamal's device, each more urgent than the last. "Dad is calling everyone." He called the police. "The police are here now." I typed a single reply, my first and only of the night. "Do not worry. Go to sleep. I am safe." I powered the phone off again. I lay in the unfamiliar bed in the quiet room. I missed the sound of my own house settling, but I did not regret leaving. The note on my kitchen table was not just a message. It was a boundary. It was the first line drawn in a war he did not yet know he had started, and I had drawn it in my own handwriting. The next morning, I dressed in a navy blue pantsuit and a simple white blouse. I applied a light layer of makeup and arranged my silver gray hair into its usual neat twist. The woman in the mirror looked composed, professional. She did not look like a confused runaway. She looked like someone with an appointment to keep. Beverly made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, but we did not speak much. The silence was companionable, filled with the understanding of the day's tasks. At 8:30, I took my leather bag and drove to the offices of Green and Associates, located in a modest brick building downtown. I had been a client of Patricia Green for 25 years. The receptionist, a young man I did not recognize, greeted me. "I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Ms. Green," I said. "Eleanor Jenkins." He checked the computer. "Yes, Mrs. Jenkins, please go right in. She's expecting you." Patricia Green's office was as I remembered, orderly, lined with legal volumes, a large window overlooking a small courtyard. Patricia herself was in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She stood as I entered, coming around her desk to shake my hand. Her grip was firm. "Eleanor," she said, "it's good to see you. Please sit." She gestured to the chair in front of her desk. "Your message last night was concise. You said it was time to activate the contingency." "It is," I said, taking my seat. I placed my bag on the floor beside me. "You're staying at Beverly." "I am." She nodded, returning to her chair. "Tell me what happened." I recounted the events of the previous evening. Jamal's whisper, the stated plan, my departure, the note. I kept my voice level, statting facts. Patricia listened without interruption, her hands steepled in front of her. "And the police?" she asked when I finished. "My grandson informed me they were called. I expect you may hear from them." "I already have," she said, a slight smile touching her lips. "An officer Dalton called this morning at 8:15, following up on a missing persons report filed by Marcus Jenkins. He described you as vulnerable, possibly suffering from early dementia and a danger to yourself." I felt a cold spike of anger, but it was distant, like watching a storm through a window. "I see." "I informed Officer Dalton," Patricia continued, "that you are a client of mine in full possession of your faculties, that you are not missing but residing voluntarily at a private location, and that any suggestions of incapacity were likely related to a disputed financial matter. I provided him with a copy of the document revoking your son's power of attorney, dated 5 years ago. He seemed satisfied. He said he would close the report. The first barrier had been neutralized. Marcus's attempt to use the state to locate and control me had failed within hours. "Thank you, Patricia." "It's my job, now to the substantive matters." She opened a file on her desk. "We have your current will, executed 3 years ago. It places your primary asset, the house, into a trust for your grandson, Jamal, with a life estate for you. Beverly Thompson is named executor and trustee. There is a provision for a small cash bequest to Marcus, contingent upon him not contesting the will. All standard, but ironclad. Yes. The power of attorney revocation is on file. He has no legal authority to act for you in any capacity. Do you wish to formally disinherit him? I considered this. The cold part of me wanted to say yes, to draw a final, punitive line, but I thought of Jamal and of the man Marcus might still become if cornered with no exit. Not yet, I said, but I want to secure the property beyond any challenge. I want to make it inconvenient for him to even try. Patricia leaned forward. What are you thinking? The historical landmark inquiry, for the white oak in the backyard. You helped me draft the preliminary research years ago. Her eyebrows raised. The tree your husband proposed under. Yes, it's a legitimate specimen over 150 years old. Filing an inquiry with the city's Heritage Committee would place a temporary protection order on the property, preventing any alteration or sale pending review. It would tie the house up for months at least. Exactly. I want that filed today. I also want you to draft a letter to Marcus. Formal, from your office. Inform him that any attempts to pursue guardianship or conservatorship over me will be met with a countersuit for financial exploitation and elder abuse. Cite the revoked power of attorney as evidence of pre-existing concern. State that I am aware of his plans and have taken appropriate legal measures to protect my assets. Patricia was writing notes on a legal pad. That will scare him. It may also anger him. I am prepared for his anger. I am more concerned with his access to my home. He has a key. We can change the locks. I can recommend a bonded locksmith who can do it today and provide you with a bill for legal expenses, which you can keep. It establishes a paper trail of his exclusion. Do it, I said. The decision was clean, surgical. And the house itself. You're not planning to return immediately. No, not until this is settled. The house is empty. That is a vulnerability. I would like you to contact a property management service to perform weekly well checks for a fee. Again, a paper trail showing active management in my absence. Patricia nodded, admiration in her eyes. You've thought this through. My husband and I thought it through, I corrected quietly. I'm just following the steps. We spent the next hour reviewing and signing documents. The historical landmark application was detailed, requiring my signature in several places. Patricia notarized it on the spot. She drafted the letter to Marcus, reading it aloud to me. It was crisp, legal, and utterly devoid of maternal warmth. It stated facts and consequences. I approved it. I will have this sent by certified mail to his home address today, she said. He will receive it tomorrow. I will also call him, as a courtesy from counsel to counsel, to inform him it's coming. That will give him tonight to think. Good. There is one more thing, Alina. Patricia's tone shifted slightly. Your finances, your accounts are separate, but if he is desperate, he may try to access them through social engineering, claiming to be you. I recommend placing a verbal password on all your banking and investment accounts, effective immediately. Something he would not know. I thought for a moment. Use White Oak 1978, the year Robert and I bought the house. She wrote it down. I'll help you make those calls now. We can do it from here. For the next 45 minutes, I spoke to bank managers and customer service representatives, establishing the new security protocols. Each conversation was a reinforcement of my autonomy. With each completed call, the fortress around my life grew more formidable. As I gathered my things to leave, Patricia looked at me. He's going to call you, you know, once he gets my letter, if not before. I know. What will you say? I picked up my leather bag, feeling the solid weight of the documents within it, a weight that was now duplicated in Patricia's files. I will tell him the truth, I said, that his mother is not the confused old woman he thought she was, that while he was sleeping, she was awake and working. The call came at 2:17 p.m. as I sat on a bench in Central Park, 3 blocks from Patricia Green's office. I had purchased a bottle of water from a vendor and was watching a group of children chase pigeons. The sun was warm on my face. The prepaid phone, resting on the bench beside me, began to vibrate with an incoming call from a number I recognized as Marcus's cell. I let it ring 3 times. I took a sip of water. I pressed the answer button and raised the phone to my ear. I did not speak. "Mom," his voice was strained, tight with a forced calm. "Mom, is that you? Where are you? Are you okay?" "I am fine, Marcus," I said. My voice was even quieter than usual. A sharp exhale. "Thank God, we've been worried sick. The police, we didn't know what to think. That note, it wasn't like you. You need to tell me where you are. I'll come get you right now." "That won't be necessary." "Mom, listen to me." His tone shifted, adopting the patient, slow cadence one uses with a child or a simpleton. "You're not thinking clearly. You left the house unlocked. You left your phone. This isn't safe. You need to be somewhere you can be looked after." "I am being looked after," I said, "by my attorney." The silence on the other end was abrupt and total. The false concern evaporated, replaced by a blank static. When he spoke again, the careful patience was gone. "What did you say?" "I said I am with my attorney. Patricia Green, you remember her. She called you earlier today as a courtesy." She called about a letter, a threatening letter." His voice was rising. "What is this, Mom? What are you doing?" I watched a small boy triumphantly wave a breadcrumb at a retreating pigeon. "I know what you tried to do, Marcus. I know about the doctor's evaluation you arranged. I know you planned to have me declared incompetent so you could gain control of the house. I know you intended to do it last night." That's not true. Who told you that? Was it Beverly? She's always hated Cynthia. This is a misunderstanding, a huge." "Jamal told me." I cut him off, my words clean and precise. "He heard you on the phone in the garage. He was terrified for me." The sound he made was a choked gasp, as if I had struck him in the stomach. "Jamal, he's a kid. He doesn't understand." "He understands betrayal. He understands when his father is plotting against his grandmother." I paused, letting the weight of his son's witness settle upon him. "Now let me tell you what I did while you were sleeping." "Mom, don't." "First," I continued, my tone flat and instructional, "I revoked your power of attorney 5 years ago. The document you thought was lost is legally null. You have no authority to act on my behalf. The police have been informed of this." "Yuka." "Second, I have filed a historical landmark inquiry with the city for the white oak tree in the backyard. The property is now under a temporary protection order. It cannot be sold, mortgaged, or altered in any way until the review is complete. That will take a minimum of 6 months." "You're tying up the house," he hissed, anger finally breaking through. "That's my inheritance." "It is not," I said, a sliver of ice entering my voice. "It is my home, and according to my current will, which you have not seen, it will become part of a trust for Jamal's education, with a life estate for me. Your inheritance, as it stands, is a conditional cash bequest, one that is forfeit if you contest the will." I could hear his breathing, ragged and shallow, over the line. I pictured him in his own kitchen, the one with the stainless steel appliances Cynthia had insisted on, his free hand gripping the countertop. "Third," I went on, "the locks on my house were changed this afternoon. You no longer have access. A property management company will be conducting weekly inspections. Any attempt by you to enter will be considered trespassing. You're locking me out of my childhood home." The anger was dissolving into something raw and plaintive. "You locked me out of my mind first," I replied. "You discussed me as a problem to be removed. You planned to have me declared confused. You do not get to play the wounded son now." There was a long silence. I could hear the muffled sound of another voice in the background, Cynthia, no doubt, and then a sharp, "Not now," from Marcus. When he came back, his voice was lower, defeated. "What do you want, Mom? Money, an apology." "I do not want your money. An apology at this moment would be a strategic gesture, not a sincere one. I do not want it." I took another slow sip of water. "What I want is for you to understand that the person you took for granted, the gentle, predictable grandmother, does not exist. She was a facet, The whole person is someone who plans, who prepares, who protects what is hers. You're destroying the family, he whispered, the accusation meant to wound. No, Marcus. You attempted to dismantle it for a piece of real estate. I am rebuilding it with clearer boundaries. The family will continue, but it will be on terms that respect my autonomy and Jamal's future. So what happens now? The question was exhausted. Now you wait. You will receive the formal letter from Ms. Green. You will consider your options. You will sit in the silence you created. I will contact you again when I am ready. You can't just disappear. I'm your son. You are, I agreed, and for the first time a faint tremor of sadness passed through me, quickly compartmentalized. And my son thought I was too feeble to manage my own life. Remember that. Goodbye, Marcus. I ended the call before he could respond. I placed the phone back on the bench. My hand was steady. The children had moved on to a game of tag. The sun was still warm. The conversation had unfolded exactly as I had imagined it would in the quiet of Beverly's guest room. His progression from feigned concern to panic to anger to defeated shock. He was off balance, his plans in ruins, his moral position evaporated. He was now in the position I had been in 2 nights ago, betrayed and powerless. But my power was not vengeful, it was structural. I had built a lattice of legal and practical barriers around my life. He could rage against them, but he could not break them, not without exposing himself further. I stood up, dropping the empty water bottle into a recycling bin. I had one more errand to run. I needed to visit the county clerk's office to personally file the historical landmark paperwork, ensuring there was no delay. The administrative work of my defense was ongoing. It was meticulous. It was quiet. And it was mine. The stamped receipt from the county clerk's office felt solid in my hand. The historical landmark inquiry was officially filed and logged. The process was now in motion, a slow-turning gear in the machinery of the city. No one could touch the property until the committee reviewed it. I placed the receipt inside my leather bag, next to the copy of the application. Walking back to my car, the weight of the bag was different. It was no longer just the weight of documents, but of history. The white oak tree was the stated reason for the filing, but the true subject was everything it shaded. The house, the land, the memory of the man who had knelt under its branches with a ring he could barely afford. I drove not toward Beverly, but toward my neighborhood. I parked 2 blocks from my house under the canopy of a large maple. I rolled down the window. From here, I could just see the peak of my roof, the chimney. The house looked peaceful, quiet. It did not know it was at the center of a war. I had not seen it in 2 days. The distance and the legal actions I had taken created a new perspective. It was no longer just my home. It was an asset I had fortified, a legacy I was actively shaping. This shift in view summoned the past, not as a sentimental wave, but as a series of clear, factual images. I was 28. Robert was 30. We had been married for 5 years, living in a cramped apartment with the constant smell of other people's cooking. He worked for the city water department. I was a secretary at a small insurance firm. We saved every dollar. The concept of a down payment was a mountain we climbed in the dark. The day we first saw the house, it was raining. The real estate agent, a weary-looking man, apologized for the condition. The paint was peeling. The kitchen linoleum was cracked, but the floors were solid oak. The windows were large. And in the backyard stood that massive white oak, its leaves a vibrant green against the gray sky. It needs work, the agent said, stating the obvious. It has good bones, Robert replied, his hand on my back. I could feel his excitement through his fingertips. We sat at the kitchen table of that empty, echoing house, the one I would later fill with the smells of 1,000 meals. The owner, an elderly white man named Mr. Higgins, was present. He was moving to Florida. The paperwork was spread out between us. The price was at the very edge of what the bank would lend us. We had scraped together the minimum down payment. My hands were cold. "You're sure about this, young folks?" Mr. Higgins had asked, not unkindly. "It's a big responsibility." "We're sure," I said. My voice sounded small in the empty room. Robert picked up the pen. He He signed his name with a firm, looping script. He passed the pen to me. The weight of it was immense. I signed my name, Eleanor Murray Jenkins *, below his. The ink was blue. That signature represented every sacrifice our parents had made leaving the South, every hour of overtime, every meal we had skipped. It was not just a contract to purchase a house. It was a claim, a foothold in a world that had not always made space for us. Mr. Higgins shook our hands. "It's a good house," he said. "Treated me well. I hope it does the same for you." We walked out into the drizzle, the keys cold in Robert's palm. We stood under the oak tree, not caring about the rain. "It's ours, Ellie," he said, his face alight. "It's ours," I echoed. The word *ors felt sacred. We spent the next 10 years making it truly ours. Robert refinished the floors. I painted every room. We planted a garden. We brought Marcus home from the hospital to this house. We celebrated promotions in this house. We grieved Robert's parents in this living room. The mortgage was burned in the fireplace after 15 years, not 30. We did that. Sitting in my car, 2 blocks away, I understood the full measure of Marcus's betrayal. He had not just wanted a house. He had wanted to erase that history, to convert our struggle into a convenient solution for his own debts. He saw the result, not the labor. He saw an asset, not a testament. My phone buzzed. A text from the property management service with a photo attached. It showed my front door, the new brass lock gleaming in the sunlight. The message read, "Initial well check complete. No issues, all secure." I typed a reply, "Thank you. Proceed with weekly schedule." I started the car. I took one last look at the roof of my house. The past was not a weakness. It was the foundation. Every stroke of the pen, every can of paint, every burned mortgage paper, it had all been a preparation for this moment. The house was not just a memory. It was a tool, and I knew how to use it. I drove to the public library. I requested access to the microfilm archives for the local newspaper from the year the house was built. I needed to gather more historical data on the oak tree to bolster the landmark claim. The research was tedious. I took notes in a small notebook. I found a mention of the tree in a 1923 article about the neighborhood's founding. It was described as a landmark for early settlers. I photocopied the article. This was the work, not dramatic confrontations, not shouting. It was the quiet, persistent act of building a case, of weaving a net of facts and law so fine and strong that struggle against it would only entangle him further. I returned to Beverly as evening fell. She was on the porch shelling peas. "You look like you've been digging in the past," she observed. "I have," I said, sitting beside her. I showed her the photocopy. She nodded slowly. "Good, roots run deep, deeper than greed." She handed me a bowl of peas. "Help me with these." I took the bowl. The simple, repetitive task was a grounding anchor. As my fingers split the pods, I thought of roots. Of the oak tree's roots, deep in the soil of my yard. Of my own roots, deep in the history of that house. And of the new, fragile roots I was trying to protect for Jamal. It was all connected. To attack one was to attack it all. And I was done being attacked. The shelled peas became soup that evening, a simple, hearty meal Beverly and I ate at her kitchen table. The phone did not ring. The silence from Marcus's direction was now a tangible thing, heavy with his confusion and fear. The legal and practical barriers were in place. The next phase required a different kind of weapon, the court of public opinion, or rather, the court of our community. The following morning, I dressed in casual slacks and a light sweater. I told Beverly I was going for a drive. "Where to?" she asked, wiping down the counter. "The hardware store, then maybe the diner." She nodded, understanding immediately. "Say hello to Mr. Henderson for me, and tell Alma I'll be in for pie on Thursday." My first stop was Henderson's Hardware, a fixture on Main Street for 40 years. The bell above the door chimed as I entered. The smell of wood, metal, and paint thinner was familiar. Old Mr. Henderson was behind the counter, reading a newspaper. He looked up, his eyes crinkling in recognition. "Ellie Jenkins," he said, folding the paper. "Haven't seen you in a spell. How are you?" "I'm well, George, keeping busy." I approached the counter, my manner easy. I actually need a spare key made for my new locks. His bushy white eyebrows rose slightly. New locks, trouble with the old ones. A precaution, I said, keeping my voice light but allowing a hint of gravity to enter it. After my husband passed, my son Marcus had a key. With all the financial stress young people have these days, Robert always said it was wise to be careful. Even with family, you understand. George Henderson's face grew still. He was a man who valued privacy and property. He had also sold Robert the paint for the nursery when Marcus was born. He knew the history of that house. I understand, he said slowly. A man's home is his castle, even a woman. He took the new key I provided from the locksmith. Make 2 copies. Please. As he worked the machine, its grinding whir filling the quiet store, he spoke without looking up. Saw Marcus yesterday, over at the bank. He looked like he hadn't slept. Came in here asking if I'd seen you. Said you were unwell. Had wandered off. I let a small, sad smile touch my lips. Did he? That's the story then, that I'm confused. It's easier than the truth. Which is, he finished the first key, inspecting the edges. That he and his wife tried to have me declared incompetent to get the house. My grandson overheard the plan, so I left. I'm staying with Beverly for now. The key machine stopped. George looked at me, his expression unreadable. Then he gave a single, slow nod. Beverly's a good woman, your grandson Jamal, right? Good boy. He is. He resumed his work, finishing the second key. He placed them both on the counter. No charge, Ellie. George, I couldn't. Consider it a neighborly favor. He pushed them toward me. His eyes held mine. This community looks after its own, always has. You tell Beverly I said hello. I will, thank you, George. The exchange was complete. I had not asked him to spread the story. I had not needed to. By noon, the fact that Ellie Jenkins was of sound mind had been betrayed and was being sheltered by Beverly would be known to every tradesperson and retiree who set foot in his store. The narrative was now corrected. My next stop was the Ivy Grill, the diner where Alma Washington had been pouring coffee for 30 years. I took a seat at the counter. The lunch rush had not yet begun. Lord have mercy, Ellie, Alma boomed, emerging from the kitchen with a pot of coffee. She was a large woman with a voice that carried. Where you been hiding? Your boy was in here earlier, looking like death warmed over. Said you were missing. I'm not missing, Alma. I'm just not where he wants me to be. I kept my voice low, forcing her to lean in. Her expressive face shifted from cheerful concern to sharp attention. Oh, trouble in paradise. He tried to put me in a home, Alma, for the house. Jamal told me about it. Alma's lips pressed into a thin, furious line. She slapped her dish towel on the counter. I knew it. I knew that Cynthia had dollar signs in her eyes. I told Myrtle just last week, I said. That girl is measuring Ellie's curtains. She poured me a cup of coffee without asking. So were you staying? With Beverly. Good, you need anything. You eating? I'm fine. I just wanted to see a friendly face, and to let you know I'm all right, in case you heard other versions. Alma reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. Her grip was strong. Honey, I know which versions to believe. This is a shame, a pure shame. Your Robert would be spinning in his grave. She leaned closer. He came in with Cynthia, this morning. Sat right over there in booth 4. She was doing all the talking about how worried they were, how the episode had scared them. He just stared into his coffee, couldn't look nobody in the eye. That detail was significant. Shame was a more powerful ally than anger. Well, I said, sipping the coffee, I suppose they have reason to be worried, just not the reason they're telling. Alma chuckled, a deep, knowing sound. I'll just bet they do. Pie on the house. No, thank you, Alma. I should get back. You hold your head up, Ellie Jenkins. This town knows you. It knows your family. It knows the truth when it hears it. I left the diner. The process was the same as with George Henderson. I had provided facts, not instructions. The community's network, the hardware store, the diner, the barber shop, the church would do the rest. It was an organic system of accountability. Marcus would not be confronted by shouting mobs. He would be met with cool politeness, with averted eyes, with suddenly busy lines at the bank when he approached. The social capital he had taken for granted was being withdrawn. As I drove back to Beverly, I passed the barber shop. Old Mr. Miller was sweeping the sidewalk. He saw my car, stopped sweeping, and gave me a solemn, respectful nod. I returned it. Beverly was in her garden when I returned. "How were your errands?" she asked, without looking up from her rose bushes. "Informative," I said. "George Henderson says hello. Alma offered me free pie." Beverly smiled, clipping a dead bloom. "So it begins. He'll feel it first at the edges. The greetings that aren't as warm. The conversations that stop when he walks in. It'll eat at him faster than any lawsuit." "That's the intention," I said. I stood on the porch, watching her work. The vengeance was not in the act of spreading the story. The vengeance was in allowing the natural consequences of his own actions to reach him through the medium of the community he had dishonored. It was justice delivered not by my hand, but by the collective memory and morals of the people around us. It was quiet. It was efficient. And it was, in its own way, profoundly humiliating. My phone buzzed. A text from Jamal's device. Dad came home from lunch really upset. He yelled at Mom. He said everyone is looking at him. I typed back, "People see what they choose to see. Are you okay?" His reply came quickly. "I'm okay. I just wish he was different." I put the phone away. The social machinery was now in motion. It would apply a steady, inexorable pressure. My next move was to wait and to prepare for the moment that pressure forced a crack in his defiance. The groundwork was laid, both in law and in the hearts of my neighbors. The noose was not of rope, but of judgment, and it was tightening. The text from Jamal lingered in the air. "I just wish he was different." It was a child's plea, simple and devastating. It cut through the strategic calm I had maintained. This was the human cost, the center of the storm I had created. I could not allow him to bear it alone. 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, I was in Beverly's backyard helping her weed the flower beds when I heard the faint crunch of bicycle tires on gravel. I looked up. Jamal was at the side gate, his bike leaning against the fence, his helmet dangling from the handlebars. He looked small and uncertain, peering through the slats. My heart clenched. I stood up, wiping my hands on my gardening apron. Beverly saw him too. She gave me a brief nod and went inside, closing the screen door behind her to give us privacy. I walked to the gate and unlatched it. "Jamal." "Hi, Grandma." He didn't move from the other side of the threshold. "I rode my bike. I told Dad I was going to the park." "That was a long ride. You must be tired." I stepped back. "Come in. Would you like some lemonade?" He nodded, stepping through. He followed me to the porch where 2 wicker chairs sat. I went inside, poured a tall glass of cold lemonade, and brought it out to him. He took it with both hands and drank deeply. I sat in the chair beside him. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the bees in Beverly's lavender. He was studying the porch floorboards. "You're not in trouble," I said finally. "You are always welcome where I am." He looked up, his eyes searching my face. "Are you really okay? You're not coming back, are you?" "I am okay, and I will come back, but on my terms, not your father's. That is very important." He digested this. He's really messed up." He took another sip. "He and Mom fight all the time now, not yelling, but like cold fighting. She says he's weak, that he should have made you see a doctor faster. He says she pushed him into it." Jamal's voice was monotone, reciting facts he had overheard. "He doesn't sleep. I hear him walking around the house at night. And at the hardware store yesterday, Mr. Henderson didn't say hello. He just turned and went into the back." The social pressure was having its effect, faster than I had anticipated. "How does that make you feel?" I asked. He shrugged, a gesture too weary for a 10-year-old. "I don't know, sad, I guess. He did a bad thing, but he's still my dad. And now he's just sad and mad all the time." He looked at me, his eyes full of a confusion that mirrored my own inner conflict. "Are you going to punish him forever?" The question was direct. It deserved a direct answer. "No, Jamal, this is not about punishment. It is about consequence. When you make a bad choice, a consequence follows. My leaving was a consequence. The lawyers and the locks are consequences. People in town being disappointed in him is a consequence. He is experiencing them. Will they stop? They will change, I said carefully. When he changes his behavior, the consequences will change. Right now, he is still in the middle of the storm he created. He has to decide to walk out of it. Jamal set his glass down on the small table between us. He cried last night. I heard him. In the kitchen. He didn't know I was on the stairs. This information was a piece of data, a sign of fracture, of potential remorse. It was not yet an apology, but it was the raw material from which one could be forged. I see. Grandma, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I'm scared. Of what, baby? That it's all broken, that you'll never come home, that Dad will just be like this forever, that it's my fault for telling you. I moved from my chair to kneel in front of him, taking his hands in my soil-stained ones. Look at me, Jamal. Listen, you did the bravest thing a person can do. You told the truth to protect someone you love. That is never wrong. This broken feeling, it is not your fault. It is the fault of the lie. The truth is what starts to fix things, even if it hurts first. Do you understand? A tear escaped and traced a path down his cheek. He nodded. I think so. Your father is a man who made a terrible, greedy mistake. He is paying for it. That is just. But you are his son and you love him. That is also just. You can hold both of those things, I do. He leaned forward then, wrapping his arms around my neck. I held him, feeling the slight tremble in his shoulders. I did not cry. My grief was a solid, cold stone in my chest. My resolve was to be the anchor in his storm. After a while, he pulled back, sniffing. Beverly chose that moment to come out, carrying a plate with 2 large slices of peach pie. Thought you two might need some fortification, she said, setting it down. Hey, Jamal, good to see you. Hi, Miss Beverly. We ate the pie. The sweet, familiar taste was a comfort. Jamal began to talk about normal things, a project at school, a video game he wanted. The ordinariness of it was a relief. For 20 minutes, we were just grandmother and grandson, sharing dessert. When he finished, he looked at his watch. I should go back before they wonder. All right, I walked him to his bike. You know the way. Yeah. Be careful. Text me when you get home, on the tablet like before. I will. He put his helmet on, struggling with the strap. I reached out and fastened it for him, my fingers remembering the motion from years ago with his father. He looked up at me. I'm glad you're safe, Grandma. I'm glad you're brave, Jamal. He got on his bike and pedaled down the driveway, turning once to wave before disappearing around the corner. I returned to the porch. Beverly was clearing the plates. He's carrying a lot, she said. Too much, I agreed. But he's strong, stronger than his father right now. The father is crumbling. That's what the boy said. Crying is not crumbling, I said, though I knew it was a precursor. It is feeling. It is a start. I picked up our empty glasses. The legal and social pressure has achieved its primary goal. It has stopped his action and made him feel the weight of his choice. The next move must offer a way out. A difficult one, but a way. Beverly nodded. The offer. Yes, it's time to draft the terms of peace. The morning after Jamal's visit, I called Patricia Green. I did not call from Beverly's landline. I used the prepaid phone, standing in the backyard where the reception was clearest. Patricia, it's Alina. I am ready to formalize the offer. I have time at 11, she said, her keyboard clicking in the background. Will you come to the office? Yes. I arrived promptly. Patricia's office felt like a command center now, the site of our ongoing campaign. She had a draft document already on her screen. Based on our previous discussions, she began, turning the monitor slightly so I could see. It outlines the following. 1. Marcus Jenkins relinquishes any and all present or future claims to the property at 2147 Maple Lane, including any challenge to your current will or the established trust for Jamal. 2. In return, you agree to provide a one-time financial gift, not to exceed 20% of a standard down payment for a median-priced home in this county, to be held in escrow and released directly to a mortgage lender upon his securing a loan. 3. This gift is contingent upon two conditions. First, he completes a minimum of 6 months of financial counseling with a certified advisor of your choosing, with monthly reports sent to me. Second, he enters and demonstrates consistent participation in family therapy sessions with you and Jamal, with a therapist mutually agreed upon. I read the text on the screen. It was clinical. It transformed a familial catastrophe into a series of clauses and contingencies. The down payment assistance, I said. It should be framed as a gift, not a loan. A loan implies debt and connection. A gift is clean, but it carries the weight of grace. Patricia nodded, making a note. Understood. We'll adjust the language. The conditions are non-negotiable. If he fails to comply with either, the offer is void, and he forfeits any future claim, including the conditional cash bequest in the will. Yes, and include a clause that the historical landmark inquiry will be withdrawn upon the successful fulfillment of the conditions and the closing of his own home purchase. The house must be completely free of entanglements for Jamal's trust. Of course, she typed for a moment. This is a remarkable document, Aliner. It's not a settlement, it's a rehabilitation plan. That is the intention. He does not need to be destroyed. He needs to be rebuilt, properly. We spent an hour refining the language. Every word was chosen for its clarity and its legal enforceability. There was no warmth in it, but there was, I believed, a profound fairness. He would get no windfall from his betrayal, but he would get a hand up if he was willing to do the hard work of looking at himself. How do you want to deliver this? Patricia asked when we were finished. Send it by email, from your firm's account. Use the subject line, Proposed Resolution Ray, Jenkins Family Matter. Copy his personal email and his work email. He will see it. And when he calls you, screaming. He will call, but he will not scream for long. The offer is too reasonable to rage against. It will force him to confront the mediocrity of his own motives. That is more uncomfortable than anger. I left the office. It was a bright, cool day. I drove to a small park by the river and sat on a bench. I watched the water move, steady and inevitable. I turned the prepaid phone over in my hands. I had left the other one, my real phone, powered off in my old kitchen. This device was a tether only to this new, strategic reality. The call came 2 hours later. His name flashed on the screen. I answered. What is this? His voice was a brittle crackle. This email from your lawyer, is this a joke? It is a proposal, Marcus. Read it. I read it. It says I get nothing from the house. Nothing after everything. After everything, you attempted to defraud me, I interrupted, my voice calm. You are lucky you are not reading a proposal for a restraining order or a lawsuit for exploitation. You are getting, instead, a chance to own something yourself, with help. Help with strings, therapy, financial counseling. You're trying to humiliate me. No, I said, shifting on the bench. The sun was warm on my neck. I am trying to ensure you do not make this mistake again. With me or with Jamal or with anyone else. Your financial pressure led you to an unethical solution. The counseling addresses the cause. Your willingness to fracture our family requires therapy to address the effect. These are not punishments. They are treatments. He was silent. I could hear his breathing, labored. You think I'm sick, he said finally, the fight draining from his voice. I think you are lost and weak. The two conditions are a map and a strengthening program. Accept them and you have a path forward, a house you earn with a clear conscience, a relationship with your son that isn't built on a secret, a relationship with me that has new, honest boundaries. And if I don't accept, then you have nothing. You will have no claim to my property. You will have a mother and a son who know what you tried to do. You will live in a community that knows what you tried to do. And you will continue to be a man who looks in the mirror and sees a person who tried to put his mother in a home for money. The choice is yours. The silence stretched. I heard the faint sound of him setting the phone down, then a muffled sound that might have been his head in his hands. When he came back, his voice was thick. You've planned all of this, from the moment you left. I prepared for many possibilities. Your actions determined which plan I used. Jamal, does he know about this offer? Not yet. This is between us first. His well-being is the central concern of the family therapy provision. He exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. I need to think. You have 48 hours to give a preliminary response to Ms. Green. A simple, I agree to consider the terms under advisement, will suffice. If we do not hear from you, we will assume you have chosen the alternative path, and we will proceed accordingly. You're so cold, he whispered. You mistook my warmth for weakness, Marcus. Do not now mistake my clarity for coldness. I am offering you a way back. It is a narrow bridge, and it requires you to walk it alone, accountable for every step. But it is a bridge. The alternative is the chasm you dug. Look at the email again, then decide. I ended the call. I sat for a long time watching the river. I did not feel triumphant. I felt tired. The offer was extended. The ball was in his court. The vengeful part of me was satisfied by the stringent conditions. The maternal part of me ached at the necessity of them. But the strategist knew this was the only conclusion that protected Jamal and honored the legacy Robert and I had built. It was justice that sought, however imperfectly, to heal. It was the most I could give, and the least he deserved. The 48 hours passed without a response to Patricia Green. I was not surprised. Marcus had never been decisive under pressure. On the evening of the third day, as Beverly and I were clearing the dinner dishes, a car pulled into her driveway. The engine cut off. Doors did not open. Beverly looked out the kitchen window. It's him, alone. I dried my hands on the towel. I'll see him on the porch. I'll be inside if you need me. I walked out onto the screened porch. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of cut grass and damp earth. I sat on the porch swing but did not push it into motion. I waited. The car door finally opened. Marcus got out. He looked gaunt in the fatting light, his shoulders slumped. He walked slowly to the porch steps, paused, then came up and opened the screen door. It creaked on its hinges. He stood just inside, as if unsure he was permitted further. Sit down, Marcus, I said, nodding to the wicker chair opposite me. He sat, perching on the edge. He didn't look at me. He studied his hands, clenched in his lap. The silence was heavy, filled with the chirping of early crickets. You didn't respond to the offer, I said. I couldn't. His voice was hoarse. Putting it in an email, it was like a business transaction. It is a transaction, one that seeks to exchange poor behavior for a chance at betterment. He flinched. Finally, he looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed, shadowed underneath. I didn't come to talk about the offer. I don't know what I came to do. Then say what you need to say. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. The words came out in a rush, thin and insubstantial. He seemed to know it. He tried again, forcing his voice steadier. What I did, what we planned, it was wrong. It was monstrous. I see that now. Why was it wrong? My question was not an acceptance. It was a probe. Because you're my mother. Because you're not sick. Because it was your house. Each reason was a rote recitation. Those are all true, but that is not why it was wrong. It was wrong because it was a betrayal of trust. It was cowardly. It was greedy. It treated a person as a problem and her life's work as a piggy bank. Do you understand the difference? He stared at me, and I saw genuine confusion flicker behind the shame. He had expected forgiveness to follow the simple apology. He was not prepared for an analysis of his sin. I was scared, he whispered, a defense rising. Of what? Of failing, of losing the house Cynthia wanted, of never getting out from under my car payment and the credit cards, of being a 50-year-old man with nothing to show. The words tumbled out, charged with a pent-up frustration that had clearly predated his plot against me. You and Dad, you always had it figured out. You had this house, this stability. I can't even. You can't even what? My tone was not gentle. I can't even measure up. He looked away, out into the darkening yard. So I thought, if I could just have that asset, that foundation you built, I could fix everything else. It was a shortcut. I know that now. It seemed like the only way. It was the easiest way. For you, the hardest way for me. I let that hang between us. You discussed having me declared incompetent. You used the word confused. You plan to have a doctor corroborate a lie. That is not a financial shortcut, Marcus. That is a profound moral failure. He put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. It was not a performance. It was the collapse of his last defense. When he spoke again, his voice was muffled. I hate myself for it every day. Jamal looks at me and I see disappointment. And fear. I did that. The people in town, they know. I can feel it. I've lost everything. You have not lost everything, I said, my voice firm. You have lost your standing. You have lost your moral authority. You have lost your easy relationship with me. Those are the consequences. But you have a son who still loves you despite what he knows. You have a mother who is willing to offer you a difficult path out of this. That is more than many get. He lowered his hands, his face wet. The therapy, the counseling, it's humiliating. It is necessary. You need to understand why you were willing to sacrifice me for money. And we need to learn how to be in a room together without this poison between us. For Jamal's sake. And the house, you're really giving it to Jamal. It will be held in a trust for his education and his future. I will live there for the rest of my life. It will never be yours. You need to make peace with that. Your path to a home is through your own work with the help I've offered. That is the deal. It is not negotiable. He was silent for a long time, wiping at his face with the heel of his hand. The raw honesty of the moment was exhausting. The strategic part of me noted his posture, the broken cadence of his breathing, the lack of any further argument. This was the true capitulation. I'll do it, he said finally, the words barely audible. The counseling, the therapy, all of it. You will communicate your formal acceptance to Ms. Green by 10 a.m. tomorrow. She will draw up the binding agreement. Okay. I stood up. He looked up at me, a boyish uncertainty in his eyes. Do you think, can you ever forgive me? I looked down at him, this man who was my child. The anger was still there, a cold, hard stone, but it was no longer the engine. Forgiveness is not a switch, Marcus. It is a process. It begins with accountability. You have started that tonight. We will see where it goes. The first step is signing the papers. The second is showing up for the first therapy session. We will go from there. I did not offer a hug. I did not touch his shoulder. The bridge between us was too fragile for that weight, but I did not turn away. He stood slowly as if his bones ached. Thank you, he said, though for what I was not entirely sure. For listening, perhaps. For the hard line I had drawn. For not letting him off the hook. He walked back to his car. He did not look back as he drove away. I remained on the porch as full dark fell. The confrontation was over. The emotional climax had passed not with a shout, but with a shuddering confession and a weary acceptance of terms. The vengeance was complete. It had stripped him bare and then offered him a sheet with which to cover himself, thread by thread, through earned effort. It was a colder mercy than he might have wanted, but it was mercy nonetheless. And it was mine to give. The morning after Marcus left Beverly's porch, I packed my leather bag once more. The documents inside were now fewer. Some had been transferred permanently to Patricia Green's files. I placed the prepaid phone on the bedside table. I would not need it again. Beverly made a full breakfast. We ate without speaking of goodbyes. When I stood to clear my plate, she said, "You know where I am, anytime." I know. At 10 o'clock, I met with Patricia Green for the final time in this series of meetings. Marcus had emailed his formal acceptance at 9:02 a.m. The binding agreement was ready. I signed where Patricia indicated. My signature was the same as it had been on the original deed, though the hand that held the pen was older. The historical landmark inquiry will be withdrawn today, Patricia said, gathering the pages. The trust for Jamal is fully established and funded. The down payment escrow account is ready for when he finds a home and begins his counseling. Everything is in order. Thank you, Patricia. It was an honor, Alina. Your husband would be proud of your clarity. I drove to my house. It was a Wednesday. The sun was high. I parked in the driveway, not the garage. I took my time getting out, looking at the front porch, the white oak tree visible over the roof. The property management service had left a note in the mailbox confirming the weekly check. I had the new key in my hand. The lock turned smoothly. I pushed the door open. The house was silent and clean. It smelled of lemon polish and faintly of dust. The air was still. It did not feel like a fortress anymore. It felt like a house waiting. I walked through each room. Nothing was out of place. My personal phone was on the kitchen counter where I had left it, its battery long dead. I plugged it in but did not turn it on. I unpacked my bag. I put my clothes back in the closet. I returned the fireproof lockbox to its hiding place, now containing only the originals of the new documents. I placed the photograph of Robert and Jamal back on my nightstand. Then I changed into comfortable clothes and an apron. I went to the kitchen. I took out the ceramic bowl, the measuring cups, the canister of flour. I began to make oatmeal raisin cookies. The process was methodical. Measure, mix, scoop. The familiar motions were a reclamation. This was my kitchen. This was my home. I was baking cookies because I chose to, not because I was performing normalcy for an audience. I had just placed the first batch in the oven when I heard a car door shut. I did not look out the window. I washed the mixing bowl. A moment later, there was a knock on the front door, tentative. I opened it. Marcus stood there, Jamal slightly behind him. They both looked uncertain, like visitors. "Come in," I said, stepping back. They entered. Jamal's eyes darted around, taking in the familiar space, checking that I had really returned. He smiled, a small, relieved thing. "Something smells good," Marcus said. His voice was carefully neutral. "Cookies, they'll be done in a few minutes." I returned to the kitchen. They followed. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. Jamal sat at the table in his usual chair. The timer dinged. I used the mittens to take out the tray, placing it on the wire rack to cool. The scent of cinnamon and brown sugar filled the room, overlaying the smell of polish and absence. "Jamal told me about his visit to Beverly," Marcus said, breaking the quiet. "I'm glad he saw you were safe." "He is a brave boy," I said, not looking at him. I began transferring the cookies to a plate. "I have an appointment with a financial counselor next Tuesday, and Patricia, Ms. Green, gave me a list of therapists. I circled 3. You can look at them." "We will review them together," I said. I put the plate on the table. "They're hot, be careful." Jamal took one, blowing on it. Marcus hesitated, then took one as well. He did not eat it, he just held it. "The house feels the same," he said, almost to himself. "It is the same, I am the same. The circumstances are what have changed." I finally looked at him. "This is how it will be now. You are welcome here as my son and as Jamal's father, but you are a guest. The decisions about this house, my life, and Jamal's future are mine, in consultation with the trust. Our relationship will be rebuilt in therapy, or it will not be rebuilt at all. Do you understand the terms?" He met my gaze. The defiance was gone. In its place was a weary acceptance. "I understand." "Good," I turned to Jamal. "How is school?" He talked, his words gaining speed as the normalcy of the conversations settled around us. He talked about a math test, a friend's birthday party. Marcus listened, sipping from a glass of water I had given him. He took a small bite of his cookie. We did not speak of the past week. We did not speak of betrayal or lawyers or lost standing. We spoke of small things. The space between us was not filled, but the sharp edges had been sanded down to a manageable roughness. After half an hour, Marcus stood. "We should let you get settled." Jamal got up, coming around the table to hug me. "I'm glad you're home, Grandma." "So am I." I walked them to the door. Marcus paused on the threshold. "Thank you," he said again, this time with more specificity, "for the chance." I nodded. "Use it well." They left. I closed the door and turned the lock. I returned to the kitchen. I cleaned the dishes, wiped the counters. The house was quiet again, but it was a different quiet. It was not the silence of a trap or a fortress. It was the silence of a space reclaimed. It held my history, and it would protect my grandson's future. The vengeance was complete. It had not been fiery or violent. It had been administrative, social, and deeply personal. It had restored balance. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Robert and I had signed the deed a lifetime ago. I ate a cookie. It tasted of warmth and patience and time. The war was over. The peace was mine to define, and it was just beginning.